Yeah, I mean, OJ passed away today, and I think a lot of people will remember him more for the criminal trial than his accolades on the football field and some of the other great things he did. You know, he was fully acquitted of the murder charges, no matter what you believe occurred or didn't occur. He was fully acquitted of the murder charges. But that's what he's going to be remembered for. Funny story, I've met OJ Simpson many times. When I was in law school, I waited tables at Chili's in Kendall, which is right outside of Miami. And after the trial, if you remember, OJ moved down to Miami and he bought a very large house down there because Florida has homestead protection, and he knew he'd have a civil suit. So he took a lot of his money and put it into his homestead property. That was about 4 or 5 miles, if that, from the Chili's I worked at during law school. And he would come in regularly in the end of 99 and 2000. And he would come in and sit at the bar area, not at the bar, but he'd have his little entourage, 3 or 4 people, and would always sit in the same little section. He came in and they treated him really well. And I waited on him probably a dozen times, to the point where I got to know him a little bit just from waiting tables. And I told him I was in law school, and I joked around that I was a criminal defense attorney with him. And OJ got a good laugh at that. And, told me it's a great line of work and I should do well on it.
I feel like defense attorney, that is almost like maybe some people's first thought is that trial was so pivotal. So obviously it was everywhere. Everybody was talking about it. Did that have an effect on you and what you wanted to do at all? Or was that just...
I wouldn't say it had an effect on what I wanted to do, but I watched that fairly closely. I was not in law school at the time. I was in undergrad at Boston College. I actually worked at GBLS, the Greater Boston Legal Services. I did an internship at the Greater Boston Legal Services, which they provided legal services to indigent individuals. And I knew I wanted to go to law school, so I was not clerking there, but had an unpaid internship there. And so I would talk to a lot of the attorneys as that case was going on. And it was fascinating. I mean, I knew even as an undergrad that Johnny Cochran and that team just did such a superb job, and their level of trial advocacy is just stunning. I mean, I've gone back and I've read the transcripts from the closing argument. I've rewatched portions of the closing argument that Johnny Cochran did. And I've even used some of the things that he did in my closing arguments, not word for word, because that was a very lengthy closing argument. But one of the things that Johnny Cochran did brilliantly there is he laid out unanswered questions. And what he laid out is a list of unanswered questions. And during the closing argument said, if the prosecution cannot answer these unanswered questions in a matter that's satisfactory to the jury, then you must acquit him. And he went and listed out question after question after question that really couldn't be answered. And what Johnny Cochran brilliantly did is he left those questions on the podium for the prosecution. And he said, I'm going to go ahead and leave these right here for you, because the prosecution, they do their closing argument first. The defense does their closing argument, then they do a rebuttal. And so he left the questions right on the podium for the prosecution to answer, and she didn't touch them. She didn't look at them. And then that was one of the things he said. If she ignores these or says she can't answer them or doesn't provide satisfactory answers, you know that this case has not been met beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's one thing he did. And I saw that when it happened, stuck in my mind. And I've used that a handful of times with unanswered questions. And it's interesting, the 2 or 3 times I did it, a few of the times, I don't remember the exact number, the prosecutor never touched the questions. They were full acquittal. And the other time they tried to do it, but we draft the questions in such a clever way that they're almost unanswerable to begin with. So no matter what you believe of what occurred or didn't occur, it was a brilliant defense that was put on by the defense team. And so it didn't influence. I was going to go to law school one way or the other, with or without O.J. Simpson. But it was just funny that I had watched that years earlier when I was an undergrad from 95 to 99 at Boston College. And I went down to Miami, and here I am meeting him and waiting. I was a server at freaking Chili's of all places. So that's kind of wild. If you're under investigation or charged with an offense under the UCMJ anywhere in the world, in particular in Asia, and you need an attorney that can fly out to you, get on the ground, and actually win your case, give me a call and we'll do a consultation. Get more information at www.bileckilawgroup.com or by contacting me directly.